we've managed to locate them. They are small, they are furry, they are hiding in the long grass. These are your favorites, I believe, some of you. The Styx cubs. We've located them just on our southern boundary, and they are doing what lions do. They are chilling, licking, probably getting some water off their fur from that rain. Saves having to walk to a pan to drink. Visual's not great, but we will see if they move around a bit. But they are sitting in the thick bush. I believe there are 10 Styx cubs, and there's some debate about the sex, which I think is going around. I'm not too sure on the sex at the moment, but apparently 6 or 7 are males, which would make 3 to 4 female. This is my first time seeing them, so it's very hard for me to tell you exactly. And lying down like that, it's very, very difficult. Very, very nice. So I do think these were seen last night by Tristan, and he left them because daylight was fading and there were no adults around, which is the ethical thing to do. The lions will spend a lot of their time just sitting in the long grass like this, and they're right next to the main road, which is quite bizarre when it comes to trying to hide your cubs from marauding males or hyenas. It's not the most ideal place, so who knows what's going on, but there are 10 of them, and lion mortality rates are extremely high in the wild. Naturally so. The adults keep their cubs exposed like this, so it doesn't offer the greatest potential for them to reach maturity. But you can see the individual busy licking. If anyone's ever felt a cat's tongue before, it's very rasping. It's quite painful on the skin, like sandpaper. A very important element to their behavior, the grooming. They will lick every inch of their body, and then, being in a pride structure as lions are, they can groom their heads and their faces, places that they aren't able to reach. Alana, age 14, a question: how old do lion cubs have to be for the females to go back into estrus? The question there is generally 2 to 3 years. A female will be with cubs before coming into estrus again, probably 2.5. But the interesting fact there, and it's quite a sad fact, but if a male lion comes into a pride and he kills the cubs of a female, she will come into estrus within a month of the death of her cubs. We might think that that's extremely cruel and extremely brutal, but that genetic trait, that ability of that behavior that the male is doing is obviously then increased because he's having more youngsters. If you come into a pride as a male and the female has cubs that are not yours, and you have to wait 2.5 years before you can breed with them, through your duration as a pride male, you're only going to have so many cubs are going to be born. But if you come into a pride and you kill the cubs, and within 1 month she is reproductive again and she has your cubs, then that behavior that male is putting forward will obviously continue, and he'll have more cubs, more babies, more offspring, which means that behavioral trait will carry on through the line. Okay, so we're going to stay here a little bit with these cubs and see if we can... words elude me right now. We've managed to relocate, well, reposition, should I say, and we found the really small little cubs there, all snuggled up together, trying to keep warm. They, I'm pretty sure, got extremely wet about 3 hours ago, while we were in our rooms keeping dry, and they're all nice and snuggled. It seems like the older ones are on the left and the younger ones are on the right. I can't count 10, but there's at least 5 there on the left, and the bunch huddled on the right are all very, very well snuggled. So the lion's populations, how lions essentially breed is they will often breed at the same time. Females will come into estrus and will reproduce at the same time, which allows them to do something called communal suckling, which means that either mother will suckle one of the youngsters, and that can go on for a year or two, year and a half, 8 months probably at the average. But she will look after the other cubs for her sister. Essentially, they are related. The lions in the pride, the females are related. They are sisters, they are mothers, they are grannies, and so it is in their benefit to look after each other. And now we come to the question of why do lions do this and leopards don't do this? And the interesting fact is that a pride of lions needs a lot of lions recruited for the tasks that they perform. Pulling down giraffe, even zebra, things like buffalo require big muscle and working in a team. We can go back quite a long way and talk about how cats evolved from the forests, and as the climate changed, the savannas became a reality from dense woodland or dense forests where the prey species were very small. The forests opened up to form large savannas, which allowed for huge accumulation of grass, and you just saw your herbivores get bigger and bigger. Now, why the lions didn't get any bigger is practically just a physiological thing. You can only get so big before it becomes a hindrance to your size, and so instead of becoming bigger, they just formed prides where individuals work together cooperatively to take down prey that they couldn't naturally take down on their own. I'm not saying a lion can't take down a zebra, but it pays to have help. But a lion will not be able to take down a buffalo adult on its own. Cubs most certainly, or babies most certainly, or of the buffalo, but definitely not an adult. So working in prides and groups allows them to feed on larger prey, allows them to compete for bigger territories, allows them to compete with hyena, which form quite large clans. And they're not looking very competitive right now. They are doing what lions do. They're lying flat in the grass, and if we were walking right now and we came across this, I don't know if we would see it too soon. And quite a dangerous situation to walk into. You don't know where mum is, or where the mothers are. They could be anywhere. But these cubs basically will just stay in place from where mum has left them and wait for her to come back. They can take 2 to 3 days to come back sometimes, which is also one of the reasons why lion cubs' mortality rate is quite high. Obviously, the adults will go away and feed, and if you feed on a big animal like a buffalo, giraffe or zebra, it's very hard to bring that back to the cubs. So they will feed where they are, and then once they've sated themselves, they will make their way back and then suckle the cubs. So often the absence can be the fatality event, meaning the cubs don't get the nutrition that they need, or it could be the absence of the protection, which allows hyenas, other lions, or even leopards to prey on these small cats. I know there's documentaries years ago of leopard cubs being killed by pythons. These things happen, and the dangers out there are real. But being in a pride like this, having lots of cubs, you're obviously hedging your bets to see how many will come of age. But the success rate is not very good. It's not very high. But these guys are beyond cute. Beyond cute. Seems to be a little bit of mange on the head there, around the ears. But from an early age, learning their part of have to lick, have to keep clean, have to groom ourselves. A little bit of movement happening now. I know some of you got your first visual of Tandi's cub yesterday. I only saw that on stream as well. But definitely cubs are the cutest and most watchable creatures out there, especially when they start playing. And where we are at the moment, we're still on the main road, and there's evidence in the road all around us of the tracks that the individuals had just before. And before we got here, tracks all over the place of many individuals, young and small, and some of them are so small you can tell it was one of those really small babies. And obviously when mum or the adults were around, they started getting a bit frisky, and they were jumping up and down, and they were playing with each other. Clearly, I'm not going to climb out now to point out one of these tracks, but there you can see Lots and lots of lion tracks in the sand here. There's the difference between the adult and the cub. The adult on the top left there with a bit of a scrape, which means that they were even playing. You know, it's social skills that these cats do. They will play with each other, they'll jump on each other, they'll stalk each other. It's skills and techniques and strategies that they learn to survive from a later age. Pulling down your brother now is learning how to take down a zebra in many, many years to come. Obviously, a young lion like this, or lions won't actively hunt until 2.5, maybe 3 years of age. They just don't have the experience. I've followed lions before the mountain pride in the Lobombos. That was a very successful pride, and they had at the time 14 youngsters that were between 1.5 and 3, and I think that's what the ages they became while I was there. They were about 3.5 when I left. But the cubs would often be watching mum stalk, and the adults would be in the front, busy stalking, getting really close to the antelope that was unaware. And then behind the mum, the two cubs jumped up and started tackling each other and completely gave away the presence of the adults. And all she did was look back in disdain. And, you know, what communication passes there is difficult to say. But what we do know is that that cub didn't get to eat then. And so it learnt that playing games while mum's hunting leads to an empty belly. Because once they're about, you know, from about this age, definitely the ones on the left there are old enough to be eating a lot of meat. Those really small cubs are primarily focusing on, they will eat meat, but the milk from mum is very, very important. But these guys will consume huge amounts of meat, and there are stats out there that an individual lion needs about 100 prey animals per animal per year, which, if you work that out, is a phenomenal amount. And that ranges in size. I think there's an average there, and they just work it out, about 100 animals. So if you want to stock lions, and you want to have 10 lions, you've got to work out the math and work out that that is going to be a lot of animals that they're going to eat every year. And can you afford to keep those on your property? That's why there are lots of different types of ecotourism, lots of different types of management. And if the money's not coming in, you know, you've got to really think about how you can manage these places. Without the money coming in, it's impossible to keep them at the levels you'd like them to be. Obviously, being the Greater Kruger National Park, the numbers here fluctuate and are quite dependent and are determined by drought and good conditions. So what we're seeing now is a boom in the weather. We're seeing really good rainfall, which is good for your herbivore species. They're going to build up condition. We saw those kudu, we saw the nyala earlier. There's some impala feeding. They're building up condition for when the time is hot and when the conditions get worse. And what you see in these drought conditions is as the vegetation decreases, you see an increase in your predators because the animals are at very low strength, very low bodily fitness, and they are losing life at much easier rate. As the vegetation goes up, should I say the drought is reversed, you see the lion populations decline again. So it's this constant up and down battle between the predator and the prey, and these natural systems, they do balance themselves out naturally. Absolutely wonderful. The sun has come out. The cubs are still sitting underneath the bush there. Maybe they'll venture out into the sunlight here, dry their fur. So we're going to stay with them for a little while longer, and I believe James has got something that side for you, so we'll catch up with you shortly. Welcome, Corporate Landing Elementary, my apologies, from Virginia. How are we doing? Welcome to the show. We have got the cutest little lion cubs here. They have weathered the storm we had a couple hours ago. We had lightning and thunderstorms and rain, and they are sitting under the tree. There's about 10 of them. They are just hanging out and doing what lions do, grooming, cleaning each other. Really, really nice to be here. We are the only vehicle in the position, which is quite special, and we are loving it. Please send your questions through. I'd love to chat to you about lions and see what facts and information you might like to share. But there's 10 of them. I believe there's probably six or seven are males. 3 or 4 of them are young females, but it's really hard to say. One of them was sitting up a moment ago, the one just behind that one. You can clearly see it's a male, developing a little bit of a mane of hair around underneath the throat and a little bit on the top of the head. They always look a little bit out of place, the young males, with a funny hairstyle, but it kind of masks their their appearance for a long time, so they aren't really recognized as a male, because if a big male who's not dad comes into the area, he very quickly identifies the young males and chases them away, because they are obviously no use to him. Chases them away. And we were talking before about the size of prides, and a pride of lions is obviously a group of lions. Skylar, you ask a question, do animals attack each other? Well, we are looking at lions, and lions, they attack almost anything they come across. They primarily do that for feeding. A lion can feed on a huge amount of meat at a time. I mean, a big male lion can feed on about 60 pounds of meat in one sitting. It's about 36 kilograms, which is a phenomenal amount of food. But yeah, they will attack anything that moves. I've even seen them kill mice. I've seen them kill small birds. But they generally go for the medium to large sized animals. And yeah, they look quite cuddly and cute. But I guarantee you, if you get out in a sighting with lions, you are probably going to end up with a bit of a sore leg or a sore arm. It's not advised. And here we do have only youngsters, but if Mom was around, it would be a death sentence climbing out of the car now, because she is very, very protective. They will put their life on the line for their babies, and they will do everything they can to protect the youngsters. And obviously, the youngsters can't run away too quickly. A lion, if you approached it on foot, invariably, most of the time, will move away from you. It doesn't want to attack us. They know who we are. We've evolved with them over a very long time. But if they can't move away because they have cubs behind them, you will get a question: at what age does a lion cub leave its family? If it's a female, it will never leave unless the pride gets too big, that the food resource, the amount of food available is too little. Then you might have a pride split in two. Doesn't happen too often. But a male lion, it really depends on how long dad stays around. If dad stays around, that male lion can stay in there for 3-4 years. But generally, about the ages of 3 to 4, your males get pushed away, even younger if a new male comes into the pride. So it really depends on the area. I mean, there are places in Africa where the son ends up staying in the pride and ends up becoming a pride male with the dad. It's not great for the genetics of the place, but it does happen. But naturally, in a system like this, you would have males leaving between the ages of 3 and 4, but even earlier if a new dad comes in, which can often be quite difficult for them. And we spoke about earlier why you often get prides and they have lots of babies at the same time. Because if you have 3 or 4, maybe 5 boys, here there are maybe 6, if they all get pushed away at the same time, then they have a better chance of maybe claiming a territory at any given time. We just got someone joining us, folks. I'm just going to have to move quickly. Good afternoon. You guys want a visual? Do you want a visual? That's good, eh? Are you sure? Yeah. Okay. So, folks, we're just saying hello to one of our other guest vehicles on the reserve. They've come to also have a look at us and the lions. Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? We've been here with them for quite a while on our own. Frankie, a question you asked there about how many cubs a female can have. I think the maximum that's been recorded is about 6. Possibly there's more, but you often, on average, you get between 2 and 3. But 6 have been recorded, which means that 2 or 3 females can really populate a pride in almost no time if the cubs survive. So I hope that answers that question for you. So these cubs are doing their thing. They are very relaxed. They just run away. If it was the bigger ones, then it's fine. But the small cubbies, Jaden, you ask a question there. This is my first time seeing the cubs. You ask how old are they now? How big are they now? I might have to defer that question because I can't see them all there. But that one you're looking at there is only a few months old. They are very, very young. 4, 5, maybe 6 months. Whereas one of the larger males there is probably about 1.5 years. But I don't know this pride very well. This is officially my first day on the job. As compared to domestic animal, lions can get up to the size of 135, 136 kilograms for female, so you can double that, about 280 pounds for female. A male can get probably 100 pounds more than that, maybe 200 pounds more than that. But these little cubs now are probably the size that the ones you're looking at, probably the size of a Jack Russell, I would say. That one there that's busy licking. If you've all seen Jack Russells before, it's quite an interesting mix to compare this with them. Whereas the ones on the left, the size of a Alsatian. But these lions are relaxing. They're not. You're back with us again, folks, and we've just had a little bit of traffic on the road. We are on the main road here, which makes viewing like this sometimes a little bit tricky, but we seem to have been left now by the other vehicles, so we've just repositioned to try and get us in a good spot. And I don't know if you can get them there. Sorry about the pole, folks, but we've had thunderstorms today, so we battened down the hatches and we've got the roof on. There we go. Look at that beautiful profile. I can't keep the eyes open though. What do lions do most of the day? Your guess is correct. They like to sleep. They like to lie down. And the folks are off somewhere. In weather like what we had earlier, when it gets a bit muddy, when the wind picks up, when it rains, it's not uncommon to have lions moving, especially because it's cooler. If you were with us yesterday, you'll know that it was extremely hot. Temperatures were very, very hot yesterday, very humid, and this brought this thunderstorms on today, and we've had very nice, cool, wet conditions today, which really is one of the things that allows us to survive out here in the hot temperatures of the savannah. But the lions, still very relaxed. To me, a question you asked about how much food a lion can eat. Well, if you look at a male lion, he can eat about 60-70 pounds of meat in one sitting. If you can imagine that, that is a huge amount of meat. And that is due to competition. The female can probably eat about 24 kilograms, so that's about 50 pounds. So it's a huge amount of food. And the cubs, they will eat what they can get. And zebras, impala, kudu, wildebeest, they all go down the same way. And a pride, when they are moving, when there are a lot of them, and when they feed, it is vicious, it is violent. There's a lot of anger that gets displaced. There's lots of scratching and growling and fighting over the meat. And we all think that might be a bad thing, but what it allows them to do, and even from a young age, you'll see cubs will compete for the mother's milk. And those who can't compete, very sad story, but if they can't compete, they don't survive. And what that allows is that the genetics or the weakness that those babies might have had aren't allowed to breed, and so they don't go forward. And then once they're cubs and they go to a little bit older, so I guarantee you if these youngsters here that we got in picture, if there was meat and if there was a kill, there would be a lot of aggression between them, and that just gets more and more and more as they get older. The sounds which start off as cute little cat meows turn into growls and grunts and huge snarls that really do turn one's belly. I've had guests in the past who watched lions kill a giraffe and pulled the giraffe down. They managed to eventually subdue it, and the feeding started. There were 24 lions on a giraffe, and can you imagine the noise was fierce. And I remember the guests, they were from America, from New York, and they started to relax. It was a moonless night, very dark, and we decided to turn the lights off, and that noise just seemed to amplify. And yes, it was quite an experience, the sounds in the bush there. So folks, just give me a moment. I just need to reposition again now. We do have another vehicle coming in here, wants to join us for these lions. So I'm just going to reverse quickly and give them some space. I am for Minjan. For Gil. Sure. Some nice pimpans there, eh? Okay, folks, so we're just busy repositioning, letting this other vehicle get into the sighting. I believe James has a very mobile-eyed creature for you. So let's go to James and see what he has. And you're back with us again, folks, with the cutest eyes in the world staring at us through the foliage there. Beautiful green grass, contrast in the amber animal at the back. Now, they don't look very camouflaged right now, but in the winter months, the grass is very brown, and the animals are almost completely invisible. And for those of you who weren't aware of it, if you can see on the lion there, baby lion, you see behind the ears is black, nice and black, and that is because when they're looking forward, they are practically invisible to most of the animals that they are hunting, or, as we said before, trying to attack. But from behind, those black ears are a communication signal between the adults when they're hunting. And no one knows it 100% sure how they communicate. There you can see a nice black ear, how they communicate, but it's all visual body language. You don't see any of them making a noise or saying anything. It's just the position of the head. When it is focused in a direction, the ears are focused in one direction, and the individuals who are hunting with that animal can pick up on the cues or the signs that it is putting out, saying, I am hunting that animal there in that direction. And quite often you'll find individuals running around or forming all sorts of distraction displays, which are used to entice or to push animals towards probably waiting lions that are maybe hiding in the grass, or push them into the wind, a direction that they could be ambushed. So that's what we see right now, brown cubs in green grass. Skylar asked a question, how much strength? That is a very interesting question. I don't know, but I know it's a lot. There's a lot more than most animals you come across. I think the only other animal out there, predator-wise, that's stronger than a lion, one for one, would be a tiger. And we all know tigers are huge and formidable, but the strength, that's a very good question. What I know is that if a male lion jumped on a fully grown man, for those of you from America, if a male lion jumped on a fully grown big American football player, I'm pretty sure it would pull him to the ground effortlessly. That would actually be quite an interesting study to see, but we'll leave that for another day. But the strength, that is a very good question. Look at those black ears and how contrasting they are. What I mean by contrasting is how they look very different from the brown head. And when they're looking in one direction, you can see that the ears aren't focused. They're kind of like panning off to the left and to the right. Ooh, there's a big yawn. Quite often when a lion has a yawn, it then stands up and maybe has a little potty break. Logan, a question from you. Where do lions stay in the morning? Well, lions will walk around at night and they will lie down wherever they are, wherever they feel the need to lie down. Maybe on a kill, maybe they were hunting all night and they weren't successful. They'll get tired and they'll just eventually lie down and there'll be no more movement, and that's where they'll get up in the morning. But for us to understand mornings and evenings in a lion's terms is very different to the way we experience mornings and evenings. They don't have the same 9 to 5 that we have, and they are more active at night than they are in the daytime. So the question should be, where do lions stay in the day? Because that's where they will move around at night, eventually getting to a point where their energy is quite low and maybe the sun is getting quite high or getting quite warm. They'll find themselves under a tree in the shade, and they'll stay there for the majority of the day until it cools down and they can move again. But I believe that we have something very interesting with James on the other side there. Who can think about it? The long nose. James, let's see what you have. And we're back again, and there you can see the individual that I said had a bit of a yawn is now starting to get a little bit active. You can see the tongue was licking, and then it might find something, a tick or something, and then the teeth go in there and start gnawing it out. Look at that. Very important for them to keep themselves clean. There are lots of parasites and lots of ticks that are accumulated in the grass here, especially after rain. So you'll notice that we as guides walk around with specialized things on our socks, and we spray ourselves to keep the ticks from attacking us. But it's inevitable. We are going to get lots of ticks. And when you're a very furry animal like that, you're going to get covered in all sorts of things that stick to your fur and are going to suck your blood. If you're not able to remove those ticks from you, you're going to lose condition, you're going to lose fitness, and then life is going to be difficult. And when it's the life of a lion, you need to be strong, you need to be fit, you need to be able to compete, or you do not survive. So being able to groom is a very important ability. Lion, I believe, is your name. How fast can a lion run? Well, that's a very interesting question. Lions are sprinters. They're not long-distance runners, and they can travel at about, I think that the speed is about 85 kilometers an hour, which if you halve that, you're looking at about 40-odd miles an hour, which is a phenomenal speed if you can work that out. They travel at 22 meters per second. So that's at a sprint, 22 feet per second, which is a phenomenal speed. They can cover a ground of probably 100 yards in a very, very short space of time. But if they have to go further than that, generally they let go and they fail. They are not long distance sprinters. They can only try and sneak up on animals using their camouflage and their stealth and their very carefully put feet until they get as close as they possibly can, and then they have a very strong burst of energy out the blocks, but that is quickly lost if they don't manage to catch up to the animal in time. And that's why it's important for a lot of your herbivore animals to have very good hearing, to have camouflage, to stay in groups where they can be safe and where they can protect each other or keep their eyes open, because you never know when a lion is lurking and trying to get close to you. So if you ever go walking in thick bush, thick vegetation, always try to keep to the clearing so that you can avoid that surprise attack of a lion lurking in the shadows. Dakari, a very good question from you about how long do lions sleep. The debate is on, and a lot of people think lions maybe sleep less or more than they do. Lions probably sleep 20 to 22 hours a day, depending on their activity and depending on if they feed. That is a very, very low energy budget that they are exuding there. They feed on a very high protein diet. They eat meat and meat exclusively, and when they gorge themselves, fill their bellies to almost popping. I think some of us can only relate to something like that when we have a Christmas feast, but we have no idea how that must feel when you've got 30-odd or 60-odd pounds in your belly. But they will sleep for a huge amount of the day, and if it's hot, they will spend the entire day sleeping, and even most of the night. It all really depends on how hungry they are. If they're thirsty, they might move around. They also do spend quite a bit of time grooming and looking after themselves, but 20-odd hours is probably about the average. So we've had a wonderful day. The sun is starting to set. We've had rain, we've had drama, we've had lions, and we're going to link you back to James. There's a little bit of an update for you that side, so we'll catch up with you shortly. Enjoy. Well, you're back with us, folks, and not too much has changed. The individual lion that we were looking at before has done a fair bit more grooming. It's now trying to focus on the head by licking the paw and then wiping the face. It's something that you've probably seen domestic cats doing, and all your solitary cats do it. It's their only form of cleaning the face, but lions do it too. But they'll often do it as a unit, so they can help each other. A question from Evelyn: how many baby animals live here? It's very hard to say, Evelyn. We do have the breeding season now, so the impala are all lambing, the wildebeest are all lambing. Pretty sure all the squirrels and the birds and all the little mice and all of that are also having babies. So the number would probably be a lot more at the moment than there were a couple months ago. That is the season. Lions and leopards don't have a season for babies, but all the other animals enjoy our summer. I know for those of you joining us for the Northern Hemisphere, it's your winter there. It's completely opposite for us here. And we have lots of babies. This is one of the wonderful times of year to come and see baby animals. So if you ever do want to come to the bush and see baby animals, this is the time. So folks, we're going to be wrapping up this afternoon's drive. The sun is setting in the background. We have the Styx cubs lying underneath the bush here. What can we say? They are not doing too much, but we will be joining you tomorrow morning live for safari. Thank you to FC, thank you to the viewers, thank you to Corporate Landing Elementary for joining us this afternoon. I hope you've learnt a lot, and thank you for your questions. We'll be back on live tomorrow morning. Myself, I'm pretty sure, will be driving. And nice to have you out this afternoon. I hope you enjoyed yourselves, and we'll be sending you off and chat to you tomorrow. Thank you very much.